Do not do other work during this presentation, and just a reminder that there is no large lecture next Tuesday. However, there will be a guest presentation going on next Friday, which is April 1st, in the Student Center Ballroom. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Kim Hester-Williams is a professor of English and American Multicultural Studies. She received her BA in English from UC Santa Cruz and her MA and PhD in Literature from UC San Diego. She teaches courses in 19th century American literature, African American literature and culture, and related film studies. And she's also an affiliate faculty member in the Women and Genders Studies Department. Please welcome Kim Hester-Williams.
Hi. Thank you all for having me today. Welcome to my talk on community, one of my favorite topics actually. So I have a picture here from the 2014 People's Climate March in New York. And as you can see, this is a very vibrant, in all senses of that word, community that came together to rally around the issue of climate change, and specifically how climate change affects urban communities, people of color, indigenous people, women, children, and a diverse and wide range of people. I just did something that I don't normally do. A couple days ago, Sunday night, I went to the theater late to see the film Revenant. How many people have seen that film? Excellent. That is a beautiful film. The cinematography is astounding, really sublime. Highly recommend it. But also, really the issue of climate and change, and not so much climate change because it's too early. It's the 19th century, so it's too early for the Anthropocene to really set in. But certainly, humans' relation to the earth and to nature, in sort of antagonistic relation, really, to the other living beings, species beings, animals on our planet is so well represented in that film, displayed in that film, as well as indigenous rights and in the history of the, oppression of indigenous people and cultures. So I wanted to start with this image of community coming together and for a purpose that is both singular or united, connected, but also that has many aspects of it that are related to one another. People coming together for singular and multiple purposes. So I want to show a short 2-minute clip from another image of community from a novel by Toni Morrison, Beloved. And this novel is about a woman who commits infanticide to keep her, in the 19th century, to keep her children from being resold into slavery or captured back into slavery. Margaret Gardner was the actual figure from the 19th century who made the papers, as we say today, when she proceeded to the slave catch. She had run away from slavery with her children, was living in a free society, African-American society, and in the North. And the slave catchers and her slave master came to recapture them, and she decided that that wasn't okay with her, for her children to live a life of slavery. So famously or infamously, Oprah Winfrey plays Margaret Gardner, that character in the film adaptation of Toni Morrison's novel Beloved. And this is a scene that's very popular, and it's on the YouTube, and I called Let Them See You Weep. And this is baby Suggs, who is essentially the mother-in-law of Margaret Gardner, Setha in the novel. Her name is Setha. And she also has run away, but is secure in this free black community. And she becomes a preacher, essentially, figure. She is preaching in the clearing, which many historians and many academics have written about her preaching at the clearing. and talking about what these newly freed, runaway, some African Americans need to do to withstand themselves and to promote and preserve their community. This is something that I'm not going to show when she says this, but there are two scenes in which we see Baby Suggs preaching at the clearing to the newly freed persons of color, what I want to call them because they're no longer slaves. They never really were. I want you to sort of look at the second clip that we're not going to see because we don't have time, but you can read, you can see that she says, here she said in this place, weep flesh. Flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass. Love it, she says, love it hard. Yonder, they do not love your flesh. They despise it. They don't love your eyes. They just as soon pick them out. No more do they love the skin on your back. Yonder, they flay it, eating with it. And oh, my people, they do not love your hands. Those they only use, tie, bind, chop off, and leave empty. Love your hands, says Baby Suggs. Love them. Raise them up and kiss them. Mwah, she does in the film. Touch others with them. Pat them together. Stroke them on your face, because they don't love that either. You got to love it. You got to love it. This is flesh I'm talking about here. Flesh that needs to be loved. And throughout this talk, I want to return to the idea of touch and the notion of community that you see in this passage where she seems to be talking about what an individual needs to do, but it is bound up in community. It's bound up in connection. So it's worth hearing what Setha, the Margaret Gardner in this story, says about Baby Suggs, and then hearing what Baby Suggs says to the
Alec bought Baby Suggs his freedom. Slavery done already busted her legs, busted her back, hands, everything. When she come here, she ain't had nothing left to make no living with. Besides her heart. Baby Suggs used to preach right here.
Let the children come. Let your mothers hear you laugh. Let the grown men come.
Watch out there, you boy.
Let your wives and your children see you dance.
back to this. Setha says to the two daughters, one is the ghost child that comes back. That's the thing in the beloved novel, is that the ghost, the child of the child that Setha, Margaret Gardner, kills, comes back essentially to haunt the community. Not just Setha, but to haunt the community. And so there's the ghost child, and then there's Denver, her other living child. And so Setha tells them that baby Suggs didn't have anything when she escaped from slavery and came to this free place. Didn't have anything to make a living with, she says, other than her heart. And at the end, when she's telling people, she tells them to laugh, she tells them to dance, and then she tells them to do what? Weep. She tells them to weep. For what? The living, excellent, and the dead. To weep for others. To feel for others. And at no moment in that scene do we see any person alone by themselves. They are all surrounded by, in various aspects of, community and connection to one another. It is crucial for the survival of these people that they love themselves and each other, that they feel for others as they also feel for themselves, that they love their flesh and the flesh of others. So I want to talk about what I see as the 3C community. Caring, compassion, and of course, to me, the most important is connectedness. Being connected to other people. We are social beings, and we are not only connected to each other human beings, but connected to other species beings, other life, fauna, flora on the planet. We're connected to the earth as well. This is a quote from Maya Angelou's inaugural poem in 1993, the inauguration of Bill Clinton, the poem On the Pulse of the Morning. And she says, "The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face." That you have a responsibility to that connection. And what is that responsibility? How can you find a way to forge, and I want to say that because of the rock metaphor, forge community to preserve as they do and as they did during slavery and as you saw in the scene, community. So here's another quote from Toni Morrison in a speech she gave called The Dancing Mind in 1996. She says, "The piece I am thinking of is the dance of an open mind when it engages another equally open one." So here, again, you have this idea of connection. That people are connected to each other and can be, the potential of community is that connection. And there has to be an openness, a receptiveness to it. You have to be receptive to it. You have to invite it in, as we see with baby Suggs. So I want to say a little bit more about technically what's important about connectedness. Reflexivity, seeing yourself in another person. This term rassemblage is Haitian Creole, and it means assembly, compilation, enlisting, regrouping of ideas, things, people, spirits, and we see that spiritual aspect with baby Suggs in the clearing, bringing the spirits together, the spirits of the past and the ancestors with also the living, the present. In a groundings essay in the Rassemblage Journal, Jackie Alexander, elaborates on the concept of rassemblage, this Haitian Creole term, as a necessary project of reassembly and reimagination. In this picture you see there's a very sort of hostile kind of segregationist, right, view here. You have this one black child who's separated from all these other white children. And they're looking at each other, and there's a fear here. There's a sense of unknowing, and we see almost the potential for openness, but we don't, the connection, right? There's a gap literally here in this picture. And so what some scholars who are thinking a lot about connection and collectivity talk about is reassembling our notion of community, reimagining what community would look like. We know what it has been in the past in this country and other places, and even today we see so much separation, so many gaps. Today is a day which, if you follow the news, and I don't really actually that much, but even the classical station I listened to was talking about the attacks that happened today, and we're constantly bombarded on the news with that. This notion of people being very antagonistic toward one another. So this idea of reassembly, like imagine this picture and imagine how it would look different. How this assembly could look different. This grouping of people could be regrouped, reimagined. Alexander says that when we think of collective reflexivity, seeing ourselves in another person, seeing our group in another group, mirroring our own images of who we are, we create a pathway of possibility and potential. We begin to see that that person reflects who we are and connects with who we are, which creates possibility and potential for growth instead of fear, limitations, and I could have even written here division, because that's what we see in that picture. So I want to move away from that, and I want to talk about you've heard a brief introduction to who I am. I want to say a little bit more about who I am. I'm a transfer student. I was a transfer student. I went to community college first for 2 years down in Los Angeles, West LA Community College. And I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born actually in Boston. And I went to high school, junior high and high school, then we called it junior high, in the San Fernando Valley. I was bused. One of the more formative things about myself is that I was a grade school student in the 70s when there was forced busing. Right after the civil rights movement, there were these programs that bused urban students to what were all white schools, as experimentally to see if you could force integration in these schools. And I experienced, very traumatically, being the first time arriving at the San Fernando Valley Junior High School with racial epithets spray painted all over. Go away, N-word. We don't want you, N-word. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, trepidation, unknowingness about what it would mean to bring these different groups of people together. And it was very formative to me to see and to feel that disconnection. Then I decided to go away to college, as many of you probably have as well, to UC Santa Cruz for my BA. And I experienced the very opposite of that. I experienced a community, not that there wasn't any racism, because there was, but I experienced a lot of embracing from my professors and from white students, white people who became my friends. Although I have to say, in high school, I was able to form friendships, eventually, with other white students. And that trajectory kept going, where I was able to see myself, and they were able to see themselves, I would argue, in me. That we were able to recognize a connection And then I master's and PhD in literature from UC San Diego, and then came here as a professor, hired as a professor. First I was an adjunct and faculty member, and then a full professor eventually. And I've been here for 18 plus years. This is my 19th year teaching here. Taught at the East Bay campus. I've taught at community colleges, Berkeley Community College, Laney. I write about gender, race, and representation. I teach literature primarily, 19th century American literature is my main field. And all those things are professional sort of aspects of who I am, but really who I am in this tree, sort of this family tree image, is I'm a granddaughter, I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, a niece, somebody's cousin, aunt, wife, partner. Being a teacher, there's a lot of connection that goes with being a teacher. A lot of reflexivity, seeing myself in other students. Now, especially I have a daughter who is in her first year of college. And I have to say I can relate a lot more to students than I did ever before with her experiences. I'm a coworker, I'm a friend. And as I said at the beginning, a species being of the earth, a member of a collective reflexive community. We're never just one thing, we're many things. And every step of the way that you see here, I'm connected to other people, whether I recognize that connection or not. So another term that Alexander talks about from the Rosenblad journal is intersubjectivity, that connection that I just talked about. She says, think about the immense generosity and immense grace of the earth. If we were to think about it in a secular way, right, not a religious way, she means, we would have to think about all of the work it takes to produce us. All of the people who have sewn our clothes, we often don't think about that. Made our shoes, harvested our food, all of the people who have produced us just for one morning, she says. Let's not even go through the entire day. Let's just take the morning. Consider all the people that it took to produce us that we didn't have a hand in, that we don't even think about. She says we didn't have a hand either in the rising of the sun. We didn't have a hand in the appearing moon. We didn't have a hand in any of those things. And yet, without them, we wouldn't know life on this planet. We wouldn't exist without all of these connections. So community, again, for me, the most important aspect of it is connection. So how did you get here? I talked about how I arrived here. And when you saw that biography, that autobiographical sketch I gave, you saw that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my teachers, my parents, grandparents, ancestors, my family, my friends, people who supported me. One professor that I had in community college, West LA Community College, was a spitter. Do you know what that means? The person who spits when they talk. And he was infamous for that, actually, because it was a lot. And so people would literally sit in the front with their notebooks. Yeah. But he was one of the most formative, one of the most influential people in my life, because he's the reason why I became a teacher. Because with all that spitting, which I couldn't pay attention to, the passion that he taught something like Robert's Madame Bovary, which is a novel, just captivated me. I couldn't believe that someone would be that passionate about a novel, right, by literature. And he taught all the literature that way. And he's actually the reason why I'm here, standing right here before you. The connection that I made with him, that I saw myself potentially reflected in his image and his work. I don't know if you know this image, but it's from a famous children's book, The Giving Tree. And the giving tree is where this person uses the tree for everything and doesn't think about how the tree feels about that. This leaves the tree. The tree's fine to be used, but at the end, just being left is something that the tree doesn't appreciate. And so that novel is about giving and taking, and thinking about taking and translating that into more giving. So I want you to make a list, and you don't have to write the list down now, but I just want us to talk about it a little bit. I gave one example of how I got here. Give me some more examples of how you got here. How did you get here this morning? Okay, you walked. Did you walk through the forest? No, you didn't walk through the forest, which means what? There was a path made for you. Excellent. There was a path made for you. How else? What else helped you to get here today? We don't think about this, right? What? Your car, which means? Exactly. Did you make it? Okay. Somebody made it, right? Exactly. What else? You biked here. Somebody made that bike. Did you make it? Okay. So community and connection is all around us. You know, paths made for us to walk through. Cars, transportation. There's some other things that helped us to get here. Let's think of the obvious thing. Someone gave birth to you. You wouldn't exist if someone didn't give birth to you. And to go back to Alexander's point, we're breathing here on this planet. This is, California Academy of Sciences has a great film about this, right? Where this is the only, so far, that we found habitable for human beings, right, planet. We have to think about that. All that the earth gives to us, that giving idea. So being in community, from your textbook, they talk about these concepts. Right? There's one of the authors here, Kunst, this is German, I think. Kunst. Talks about commitment, acceptance, openness again, mindfulness. That was an exercise in mindfulness. You all didn't do very well. The exercise in mindfulness was to think about how you got here. To think about how you got here, what it took for you to get here. Besides your own free will, it took a lot of other things for you to get here. The structure of this very building that exists here for us to have this talk and conversation. So mindfulness, thinking about your connection, concern. I want you to weep, Baby Sug says, for other people, for the living, for the dead, for yourselves, and do it in front of other people. Have other people around, she says. Let them see you weep. So throughout that is the sense of community that is forged, again, I'll use that metaphor, by concern. Ethics, and that peace that comes from that. There's not a whole lot of peace that comes from antagonism, right? Or, I don't know, raise your hand if you find it very peaceful to be antagonistic with other people, to be in conflict. Raise your hand if conflict makes you feel peaceful. Principal disagreement is different than constant conflict, right? And rejection, a lack of openness. So, there are a couple other concepts I want to talk about. One in particular, practicality. Where are we? How do we stand? Baby Sug says, love your hands. And what she means is that we all need to love our hands. Haptic means relating to or based on the sense of touch. Touch. Stefano Harney and Fred Moten, who's a very really a poet now that is emergent, has become very popular, African-American poet, talk about a theory of the undercommons, and which is a beautiful theory of what it means for people living sort of below the surface, that we're all in this muck and mire that they call the undercommons, all trying to survive within this society, sort of under the radar, if you will. And they talk about what they call hapticality, or for them, love. And they say that is the field that no individual can stand and no state abide. Meaning that if you're an individual and if you're sort of stuck in that space of individualism, that touch is uncomfortable. Connection becomes uncomfortable. You're sort of really not open to that sense of connection, that touch becomes anxiety producing. And for a state to sort of embrace the idea of love, of touch, of connection, very difficult. Political state, they mean, because politics sort of is not conducive always to that. So they say, though forced to touch, because we are social beings, and be touched, to sense and be sensed in that space and no space, though refused sentiment, history, and home, though it's always something that is discouraged in us. We don't want people to cry. We don't want people to weep. We don't want people to feel. We are uncomfortable when people feel too much for other people. In another class that I'm teaching right after this, one of the students always talks about the homeless and how we just don't want to look at that. We want to turn our face away from that. But nevertheless, they write, we feel for each other. They mean they do. They mean we need to. That we need to touch. We might resist it, but we need it nonetheless as social beings. So here's what they call a word cluster about community. And I love that this one, there were many that I could have chosen from, but I chose this one because it had help right there prominently. People, right? Care is sort of there in the middle, right under the U, in between the M and the U. You see the word care. So I wanted to see if we could add, you can't probably see everything in this word cluster, but what are some other, when you think about community, and I think that's the next slide. Yeah. What do you think of? What is it? For you, I'm talking, I have identified it from your textbook. I've overlapped it a bit with your textbook, but I've also talked about it from my own perspective, what I think community is, why I think community is important, what the most important aspect of community for me is, which is connection. I hope that came through. Connection is the most important aspect to me of community. But what about you all? After you've done the reading and thought about it and heard me say my comments about community, what do you think makes community? What is it?
Support.
Excellent. That's a nice one to add. Support. Because holding yourself, that's it. How many people here have paid their tuition all by themselves, just out of their own pockets, paid the whole tuition? No, you haven't. No, you haven't actually. Why am I saying that? No, that's not why. When you say you paid it out of your own pocket, what do you mean? You haven't taken out loans.
I have not.
Okay, but I'm saying that still doesn't mean you paid it on your own. You have to get it somewhere. Well, I'm not going to ask you to divulge where you got it from if it wasn't from loans or parents, or because I'm assuming you mean that you financed it individually without parental help, which is admirable for both of you. But do you see my point? Somewhere, unless it just appeared out of thin air, the money, did it? Okay. It came from something, somewhere, right? So support is an excellent one. There's some way way in which we have to think of the ways we are supported, or we support ourselves even. That you supporting yourself is still support, upholding. Community is about upholding. Yeah, what else? That was a nice one, thank you. These are ones I haven't thought of. What else?
Passion.
Passion is excellent, very nice. Passion. Because that's what it takes to have a community. You see baby Suggs, she's I didn't show the other clip, but the other clip, when she kisses her own hands, she's very passionate about that love. Love your hands passionately as a way to say that you should love other people. Love what you can do with your hands for other people and for yourself especially. So support and passion. What else? Respect. I think it's on the word cluster, but that's an excellent one. That is it. To see that there is a way in which you have to respect yourself, but respecting others. If you deserve respect, other people must deserve respect. How does community sort of help us to promote the idea of respect? Why is respect important to community? What does it do? Yes? Yeah. I don't know if you heard what she said, but a safe environment. That's it. Security. Safety. Because otherwise, I have to go back to Revenant. People who were in class this morning and heard me just go on and on about the film Revenant, I apologize. I just can't stop talking about it. Because that film is just it's just an amazing, astounding, beautiful film. Really about that connection is. And in that film, there's so much conflict, particularly between these two individuals, but the sense that you don't feel safe, you don't feel secure. Safety and security come when we recognize and embrace, open to our connection with others. What else? I think I'm running out of time here. So let's look at how do we create community? Have that famous Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I'm advocating now for us to rethink, right, community, regroup, think about it as Alexander does. How do we do it? Give me a couple of ideas about how we arrive at where we can recognize and sort of enact community. Excellent, that's nice. Sharing common goals, nice. Thinking about what our common goals are, like for instance, I don't know about you, but I'd love for my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to have a habitable earth. To do something about climate change.
Listening to others.
Yes, nice. Listening. Listening to other people. Yes. Teamwork. Working together as opposed to in opposition to one another.
It's just like participate, you actually show up.
Yeah, nice. I love that's a good one to end on. That's an excellent one to end on. That sense of doing something, not stepping back and sort of that Rock says in that poem by Maya Angelou, you can stand on me, but don't hide your face. It means do something. Make a difference by participating. Good job. Good job.